Hey there YouTube, this is Rijuta from Keep Calm and Read All, and welcome to my brand new booktube channel, Keep Calm and Read All. So basically I have no idea what I am doing here. Basically it's like thrown into a deep end. All I know is that there's something called the newbie tag, which apparently you do when you start your booktube channel. Now I haven't been tagged by anyone, so I am basically just tagging myself. Now the first question of the newbie tag is yeah, I have like a whole list of the newbie tag. So yeah, the first question is, why did you start this channel? Now when I grew up, I really thought that I was one of the few people out there who actually read, simply because everyone around me, my friends and my classmates, they were like, okay, what is this all about? So basically I've been always by myself and my books, but then I joined for my post-graduation studies, and that's where I realized that there are so many people who are exactly like me. And then of course I joined Instagram, and that's where I realized, oh my god, how many people read the same books, share the same obsessions related to books that I personally have. So that is basically what I want to do here in YouTube, basically connect with all of those book lovers out there. So it's basically an extension of my Bookstagram obsession basically. The second question is, what are some fun and unique things that you bring to your channel? Now basically I am an Indian reader. I grew up on stories, reading stories from Amar Chitra Katha. I grew up reading stories about Hindu mythology, Panchatantra. I grew up with Malgudi Days by R.K. Narayan, which basically is an exceptional read on the ethos of Indian culture, ethos of Indian small towns. So what I want to do over here is share that love of Indian fiction with you readers out there. From what I have noticed, beyond a very popular understanding of Indian fiction, most readers do not know that there is an absolute, there's a whole wide world of Indian vernacular literature, which basically I want to share with you guys on my booktube channel. The third question is, what are you most excited for about this channel? Basically connecting with the book community out there. Instagram gave me a glimpse of the kind of book community that exists in the world, and basically in this booktube channel, that's what I hope to do, connect with even more book lovers out there and share with them this mutual love affair with books. Why do you love reading? Oh my god, how much time do you have actually? Because I love reading, I love books, and ever since I can remember, that is basically what I have done. Forget studies, forget whatever life obsessions that you should have. I have basically been book obsessed most of my life, and I know it sounds like I should be committed somewhere, but come on, seriously, you understand what I'm talking about, right? So what I want to do is just that. What I have done is just that, just read. I have always been a reader, and I will always be a reader. What book or series got you into reading? I really can't remember. I mean, there are so many books that I have read. There are so many books that I have been reading and rereading that I don't really remember what that first point was, what that first moment was when I actually started reading what book exactly. I would probably say, like, as a child I used to read Panchatantra. As a child I used to read Amar Chitra Katha, basically, which is like, graphic representation of various stories and myths of Hindu mythology, Indian literature, basically all of that. So that is what, if I have to say, that will be it, because I have been reading so much, like throughout my childhood. I read Enid Blyton the same way as I read Panchatantra or Malgudi Days or any work by Ruskin Bond. On the other hand, I read abridged versions of Indian and Western classics. Like I still remember in my sixth standard there was this abridged version of Around the World in 80 Days, and I absolutely enjoyed reading it. I mean, it was so different from the kind of life that I was leading at that point of time. So it was like a revelation. Then of course there was Harry Potter, there was Enid Blyton. I mean, do you remember Enid Blyton? Do you remember Famous Five? It was a whole different time then, and thankfully I had a good library and I had very indulgent parents who basically let me read all that I wanted. What questions would you ask your favorite booktubers? What would be that one book that you would save? Like if your house was burning down and you could save that one book, which book would that be? The next question is, what are the challenges that you as a booktuber intend to overcome? Basically, I'm not very consistent. I tend to get lost while I'm reading. I tend to lose contact with the outside world. It's only when, my friends constantly ping me on WhatsApp or other social media, that's when I realize that, okay, enough time has been spent reading and it's time to get back into the real world. So while I am very voracious as a reader, I am not very consistent about sharing or talking about reading that much. Like I have a blog, but I haven't been updating it regularly. In fact, I've lost touch with it for the past few months, and now I have restarted it very recently. So I would like to be consistent in that. I would be consistent in writing my blog. I want to be consistent in this channel to talk about my love for books. So that is basically what I think is going to be my most hardest challenge with starting this booktube channel. The next is, when did you start reading? Again, I would refer back to my earlier answer. I've always been reading. I've always been a reader. I've always read. I can't pinpoint to that fixed chronological moment when I started reading. All I can say is that it's been a very, very long time. Then, where do you read? Right here. This over here is my library. This is where I come and basically forget about the rest of the world, make some coffee for myself, and just read and read and read. So yeah, this is my library, guys. Finally, what kind of books do you like to read? Again, how much time do you really have? Because that is like going down the rabbit hole. I mean, that is like opening the Pandora's box. But still, I would keep it short and not very to the point, but short enough, I guess. I am a huge classics lover. I love classics of any kind, any world fiction. Basically, you give me something from English society, give me something from Latin American culture, give me something from Southeast Asian, Australian, Canadian, anything. Basically, classics are my go-to choice. If I have a choice between, let's say, a classic and a contemporary fiction, I would most of the times I would choose that classic, simply because they are very comforting, they are familiar, they are something that I grew up with, they are something that I intensively studied during my postgraduate and my PhD years. So it's always been my go-to choice. The other genre that I enjoy a lot is fantasy, simply because of Harry Potter. That's where I started my journey into fantasy literature, and it's usually it just spiraled from there. I love, if you see the top shelf at my background, in the background, it's all fantasy from one end to the other. And on top of that, if my camera were a little wider, you would have seen my love for detective fiction. And if you look towards the bottom shelf, you can see that on this side it's all classics, and on this side it's all contemporary fiction. So it's everything is just, I basically am a book hoarder. I love collecting books, I love reading books. So this is basically an expression of my complete book madness. So yeah, coming back to the point, as I said, it's not going to be always to the point. But yeah, coming back to the point, I'm also a huge lover of detective fiction. Michael Connelly was one of the first police procedural that I read. Agatha Christie, Sherlock Holmes, those are like, my classic. That's what I think of, like what classic detective fiction would be. Again, contemporary fiction as well. I recently marathoned through the entire Bailey shortlist. I basically made a blog post about it. I am going to tag or provide the link in the bio, and you can read for yourself how I marathoned through the entire Bailey's list. Currently, I'm reading through the Bailey's long list, which the first one is The Essex Serpent. But huge Murakami fan, huge Murakami fan. Also David Mitchell, one of my absolute favorite contemporary authors. Margaret Atwood, John Fowles, a lot of contemporary fiction as well. Again, science fiction. I read everything. In that case, I'm a very voracious reader. I read everything that I can. If I like the blurb, if the blurb sounds interesting, I will buy that book and I will read it. It doesn't matter what. Like, it could be something completely different from what I am used to, but I will read it if I find it interesting. And most of the time, I do find it interesting. The one genre that I haven't read much about is probably young adult. Mostly because, well, I have passed that stage, but I would like to know more about this because it seems like it is a phenomenon which is here to stay, and I would like to read more about it to see why so many of the people, of the book lovers that I know, actually, love YA literature. So yeah, that's pretty much what I like and what I would like to read. And yeah, so that's me, newbie on the block, who's basically here to talk a lot about books. So be patient with me and stay with me, and hopefully you like what I'm talking about. So that's all for tonight, folks.